The Grand Council of the Hadrak Dominion, a vast empire spanning hundreds of worlds, had declared it. The Hadrak people were the supreme beings in the galaxy. Across the stars they ruled with an iron fist, their fleets unchallenged, their warriors unmatched. No other species could possibly rival the Hadrak when it came to survival, combat, or sheer resilience. They were the epitome of evolution in the brutal dance of life, a race forged in the fires of their inhospitable homeworld, where monstrous predators roamed free and only the strongest lived to see another day. But the most sacred belief of the Hadrak, an unspoken truth that pulsed through their collective bloodline like an oath, was that they, and only they, were the true Deathworlders. To the Hadrak, Deathworlders was not just a title, it was a sacred distinction. They had come to define themselves as the only species capable of surviving and thriving on planets where the very environment itself sought to kill them. Of course, that was before they met humans. It happened on a routine scouting mission. The Hadrak Dominion had dispatched an elite strike force to explore a newly discovered star system in the Outer Rim, a place that had been off-limits for centuries due to mysterious phenomena in the surrounding nebula. It was believed to be a dangerous region, filled with unknown threats. Naturally, this only served to pique the Hadrak's interest. They arrived on the third planet, a rich, fertile world orbiting a binary star system. The scans were promising. Dense jungles teeming with wildlife, oceans brimming with vast untapped resources, and a varied atmosphere that hinted at the presence of intelligent life. What they did not expect, however, was the sheer brutality of the planet's inhabitants. As the first Hadrak boots hit the soil, the ground itself seemed to tremble. From the foliage, something moved, something large. It emerged from the jungle, towering over the Hadrak soldiers, its leathery hide glistening under the twin suns. A massive creature with talons as long as spears, eyes glowing with an intelligence that chilled the hearts of the seasoned Hadrak warriors. This was no ordinary beast. This was an apex predator. And it was furious. It charged, and the Hadrak soldiers fired with precision, their plasma rifles lighting up the sky. But the creature, an armored behemoth resembling a mix of predatory carnivores from a dozen different worlds, shrugged off the blasts. It roared, shaking the ground, its breath stinking of sulfur and iron. The battle was brutal, quick, and one-sided. Despite the best efforts of the Hadrak warriors, each of whom was trained in the deadliest combat techniques, each of whom had survived wars against their own kind, the behemoth tore through them, like a child tearing apart a toy. Their plasma weapons, while effective against most life forms, were useless against its thick hide. The Hadrak leader, a towering figure known as Commander Vrak, was the first to understand that something was very wrong. His people were the Deathworlders. They were the predators. They were the ones who survived the horrors of their homeworld, where every shadow held a new nightmare. But here, on this strange world, they were nothing more than prey. In the midst of this chaos, another force emerged from the jungle. This time, the Hadrak soldiers didn't see it coming. Humans. The first human they encountered was a woman. She emerged from the underbrush, her eyes sharp, her movements fluid, and most shockingly, her weapon drawn, an archaic yet effective firearm. She fired with terrifying accuracy, landing a series of shots that sent the behemoth reeling back, staggering as the human moved with astonishing grace and precision. The Hadrak watched in stunned silence as she took down the creature, something that their most advanced weapons had failed to do in mere moments. Then the human spoke, her voice cool and unbothered. "Do you need help?" she asked, almost sarcastically. "You don't exactly look like the Deathworlders to me." Commander Vrak's mandibles twitched in disbelief. The woman's casual dismissal of the most terrifying creature he had ever seen, and her apparent lack of concern for the battle unfolding around them, struck him to his core. The human's name was Captain Helena Drake, and she led a small group of humans stationed on this distant world. The Hadrak learned that the planet, called Terra, was home to a species far more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. As the days passed, the Hadrak found themselves locked in a strange and tense alliance with the humans. They learned that the world they had invaded was not only home to terrifying creatures, but that its inhabitants, humans, were built for combat in ways the Hadrak could scarcely comprehend. Helena and her team explained the concept of Earth's Deathworlds, a term that until now the Hadrak had never considered. It wasn't just the environment that made a world deadly, it was the creatures and the people who had adapted to it. "You think you're the only ones who've fought to survive?" Helena asked during one tense briefing. "Humans came from a place where every day is a fight. The creatures you're calling monsters? We've got dozens of them back home, each one worse than the last, and we've learned to thrive." For the first time in their lives, the Hadrak felt the weight of their own arrogance. They were warriors, yes, but humans? Humans were a different breed altogether. The tension only deepened as the Hadrak and humans continued to share information. In a daring mission, they entered the heart of the jungle, where the greatest monsters of Terra lived, towering lizard-like creatures with multiple rows of razor-sharp teeth, storm beasts capable of uprooting trees with a single swipe of their claws, and the most terrifying of all, the alpha wyverns, giant winged serpents with a wingspan that could block out the sun. The Hadrak soldiers found themselves struggling to keep up with the humans, who moved through the dense foliage with ease. The humans seemed to know the terrain better, their weapons more versatile, their instincts sharper. They fought alongside the Hadrak, saving their lives again and again, as if they were born to battle in this deadly world. But it was during the battle against an ancient creature known as the Tyrant Worm, a massive, subterranean behemoth with an armored exoskeleton, that the Hadrak truly began to understand. The creature was nearly unstoppable, capable of sending shock waves through the ground with every movement. It was a force of nature, and yet the humans took it down with a combination of firepower, strategy, and sheer nerve. When it fell, the Hadrak leader, Commander Vrak, stood in awe, his mind racing. The Tyrant Worm should have been the ultimate test, the one creature they could not defeat. But the humans had conquered it. And in doing so, they had shattered the Hadrak's belief in their own supremacy. The weeks turned into months, and the Hadrak and humans formed an uneasy alliance. Yet, even as they worked together to survive the dangers of Terra, something darker began to stir. The more the Hadrak learned of the humans, the more they realized that the true threat wasn't the beasts or the environment. It was the humans themselves. The Dominion's spies had begun to report strange incidents. While the humans seemed to cooperate on the surface, there were subtle signs of mistrust. Disagreements began to arise about strategy and tactics. Helena Drake, once their ally, now seemed more distant, more calculating. Some of the Hadrak began to fear that the humans were not simply surviving on Terra, they were conquering it. And they had no intention of sharing this deadly world with anyone. As tensions grew, the situation on Terra became increasingly volatile. The humans had begun to push back against the Hadrak's encroachment, employing guerrilla tactics that left the Hadrak forces reeling. The humans knew the terrain better, understood the beasts better, and fought in a way that was utterly alien to the Hadrak. But just as the Hadrak were about to launch a full-scale assault on the humans, something even more dangerous appeared. An ancient entity, a primordial force of Terra, had awoken from the depths of the planet. It was an intelligence older than the stars themselves, a creature with the power to reshape the very fabric of the planet. The humans and Hadrak were forced to put aside their differences in the face of this new threat, a force capable of annihilating entire civilizations. In the final confrontation, as the skies burned with the fury of the ancient entity's power, Commander Vrak and Captain Helena Drake stood side by side. The true nature of Deathworlds had finally become clear. It wasn't the planet, nor the monsters, nor the constant struggle against the elements. It was the humans who could face any threat, endure any hardship, and come out not just alive, but stronger. The true Deathworlders were not those who ruled from the shadows of their own planets, but those who had adapted to their environments in ways that the Hadrak had never even conceived. As the ancient entity reared its colossal form from the depths of the planet, the ground quaked and the sky burned with its unfathomable energy. It was a force that had been slumbering for eons, waiting for the day when it would finally awaken to reclaim its dominion. Now, it loomed over the battlefield, its enormous body twisting and shifting in ways that defied understanding. Its eyes burned with a malevolent glow, and its voice rumbled through the air like the sound of an entire mountain collapsing. "This planet belongs to me," the entity's voice boomed, its tone as ancient as the universe itself. "You are but insects, fighting over scraps of a world that was never meant for you." For a moment, even the humans seemed taken aback by the sheer power of the creature, but then Captain Helena Drake stepped forward, unflinching. She stood tall and resolute, her eyes locked onto the entity's gaze. "You're wrong," she said, her voice calm but firm. "This world belongs to those who survive it, and that's us." The Hadrak watched in stunned silence. The audacity of the human, the defiance, was something they had never encountered before. For a moment, Commander Vrak thought the woman was a fool. But then he realized something that gnawed at him deep inside. Helena Drake wasn't just speaking from arrogance. She was speaking from experience. The humans had fought worlds far worse than this. They had fought against extinction itself, and they had survived. The battle against the ancient entity was unlike any the Hadrak or humans had ever fought before. The creature's power was overwhelming. With every step it took, it shook the very foundations of the planet. Its breath scorched the land, turning forests to ash, and its roar could be heard across the entire continent. The humans, though outmatched, fought with a ferocity that could only come from a people who had known nothing but war for millennia. They used every weapon at their disposal: armored exosuits, high-powered rifles, drones, and explosives. Each strike a calculated move designed to weaken the entity. But despite their efforts, the ancient creature seemed almost invulnerable, its massive body deflecting their attacks with ease. The Hadrak, on the other hand, were used to a different kind of warfare. Their species was built for strength, for endurance, for the brutal tactics of close-quarters combat. But as the battle raged on, it became clear that even the Hadrak's greatest warriors would be of little use against such an overwhelmingly powerful foe. The creature was simply too immense, too powerful for their weapons and skills to overcome. That was when the unexpected happened. Helena Drake and Commander Vrak, both exhausted from the relentless battle, found themselves side by side once again. The human captain's eyes met the Hadrak leaders, and for the first time, they understood one another completely. Vrak had come to see what Helena had known all along. The true power of the Deathworlders wasn't in their weapons or their strength. It was in their ability to adapt, to think, to overcome impossible odds. And together, the humans and Hadrak had the one thing the entity didn't have: ingenuity. They shared a plan, one born from desperation and hope. The Hadrak's heavy artillery would draw the entity's attention, while the humans would infiltrate its weak points, its massive armored body, and plant their most devastating explosives. If they could strike the heart of the creature, they might stand a chance of defeating it. The final moments of the battle were a chaotic blur of explosions, gunfire, and desperate tactics. The Hadrak's massive warships rained down fire from above, keeping the entity occupied, while the humans, using their agile exosuits and intimate knowledge of the terrain, moved swiftly and stealthily toward the creature's core. Just as the creature's massive clawed hands crushed the Hadrak forces below, Helena Drake and a small team of elite human soldiers reached the heart of the beast. They planted the explosives, timed to trigger just when the creature's attention was fully diverted. The ground shook as the countdown reached its final seconds. Then, with an earth-shattering roar, the creature was torn apart from the inside, its body collapsing in on itself as the explosives detonated in a cataclysmic explosion. The aftermath of the battle left the land scarred, but the skies were clear, and the sun shone down on a battered but victorious team of humans and Hadrak. The ancient entity had been vanquished, and Terra remained standing. But the victory came at a cost. The Hadrak were exhausted, their warriors bloodied and broken. But it was the humans, too, who had suffered heavy losses. Despite the odds, they had held their ground. And in doing so, they had revealed something to the Hadrak that would change the course of the galaxy forever. As the dust settled, Commander Vrak approached Helena Drake, his massive form looming over her. For a moment he said nothing, only studying her with an intensity that felt almost alien. "You were right," Vrak said at last, his voice heavy with respect. "The Deathworlders are not those who survive their planets. It is those who shape their worlds with their will. And I have seen it now. Humans are not like any other species I have encountered. You do not just survive, you conquer." Helena met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "We do what we must to live," she replied simply. "And if that means conquering the impossible, then we do that too." In the days that followed, the Hadrak began to reassess their understanding of the galaxy. They had always believed themselves to be the apex of evolution, the supreme warriors in a universe filled with weak and dying species. But the humans had shown them something different, a way of life that not only embraced the chaos of the universe but reveled in it. The Hadrak began to recognize that they were not the only Deathworlders. There were others, too. There were humans, and there were countless species across the galaxy that had found a way to thrive in the face of impossible odds. And then, as if to seal their newfound understanding, Commander Vrak made a decision that shocked his people. He forged a treaty with the humans, an alliance that would unite their forces and resources. Together, they would confront threats that no one species could withstand alone, including those that came from the darkest corners of the universe. In the months that followed, the Hadrak and humans forged an uneasy but powerful alliance, their combined strength sending ripples through the galaxy. Empires and alien races that once considered themselves untouchable began to feel the weight of the combined might of the Deathworlders. But for the humans and the Hadrak, it was only the beginning. Their alliance would face challenges, yes, and there would be moments of betrayal, doubt, and fear. But together, they were stronger than any enemy that would dare challenge them. The galaxy would learn one undeniable truth. The Deathworlders were not the ones who ruled the galaxy. They were the ones who survived it. And humanity had shown them that survival was a way of life. As the stars burned above, and the remnants of war scattered across the surface of Terra, the humans and Hadrak stood on the precipice of a new era, no longer divided by their differences, but united in their struggle for survival and supremacy. The galaxy, once a cold and indifferent expanse, now had a new order. The Deathworlders, humans and Hadrak alike, were no longer just survivors of their planets. They were the ones who would reshape the future. And as they looked toward the stars, they knew that whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them together, with fire in their hearts and the will to conquer the impossible. For they had learned the ultimate truth. There is no force in the universe stronger than a species that refuses to die. And in this universe, humans had proven they would never stop fighting. The alliance between the Hadrak and humans, though hard-won, had changed the fabric of the galaxy. In the months that followed the battle against the ancient entity on Terra, new threats emerged, some external, others far more subtle, creeping from the shadows of their newfound unity. The Hadrak, once isolated and proud in their dominion, had begun to collaborate with the humans. They traded knowledge, exchanged strategies, and shared technology that had once been the sole property of their respective empires. Together they faced new enemies, pirates who had learned to traverse the darkest reaches of the galaxy, strange void creatures that fed on energy itself, and even more terrifying, rival factions within their own empires that had sensed the shift in the balance of power. One such faction, the Vorlok, a race of hyper-intelligent, hive-minded aliens, had begun to stir. They were an ancient species, one that had once been an ally to the Hadrak, but their ideology was different. They believed in the superiority of the hive and the death of any species that could not conform to it. The Vorlok, who had observed the human-Hadrak alliance from the fringes of the galaxy, were beginning to make their move. The first sign came from a remote, barren moon in the Sikoris system. A distress signal was sent out, a cry for help from a colony that had been researching the energy anomalies left behind by the ancient entity. The message was short and fragmented, but it was clear enough. The colony had been attacked, not by local fauna, but by something far worse, something intelligent. "Vorlok," Helena Drake muttered under her breath when she read the report. Her expression hardened. "We need to go there, fast." Commander Vrak stood at her side, his mandibles twitching in both curiosity and unease. "The Vorlok have not moved openly in decades. What makes you so sure this is their doing?" Helena didn't answer immediately. Her mind was already racing, piecing together the clues. The colony had been studying the energy signature of the ancient entity, and if the Vorlok were involved, it could only mean one thing. They were after something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. The Vorlok didn't just seek power. They sought control over the very fabric of the universe. "We don't have time to waste," Helena finally said, her voice low but determined. "Whatever they're after, it's dangerous, and if we don't stop them now, they'll have the means to bring chaos to the entire galaxy." The journey to Sikoris was a tense one. Both the human and Hadrak forces worked in tight coordination, preparing for a potential conflict, yet no one could truly prepare for what they would find upon arrival. The moon itself was desolate, barren rock, cracked and scorched from centuries of exposure to the harsh elements. But as the fleet descended through the atmosphere, the first signs of life were discovered. A strange, eerie glow emanated from deep within the surface of the moon. It was not natural, nor was it the faint signature of the ancient entity. This was something else entirely. The colony, once thriving with scientists and workers, had been reduced to a silent ruin. The communication array was still intact, broadcasting the last few seconds of the initial distress signal, but the structures were torn apart as though they had been subjected to intense heat and pressure. It wasn't just destruction. It was precise. "It's them," Vrak growled, his voice a low, rumbling snarl. "The Vorlok are here. I can feel their presence." As they landed, the humans and Hadrak were immediately struck by a strange, oppressive feeling. The air was still, unnaturally still, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to hum with a low, insistent vibration. Whatever the Vorlok were doing, they were already here, and it was only a matter of time before they encountered them. They moved swiftly through the wreckage, weapons at the ready. Helena's team and Vrak's elite soldiers advanced in tandem, their senses sharp, their eyes scanning every corner of the darkened facility. But as they descended deeper into the heart of the moon's underground complex, they found something unexpected. A massive chamber, once a research facility, was now a twisted shrine. The walls were lined with strange symbols, glyphs that seemed to shift and writhe under the flickering lights. In the center of the room, a vast, pulsing energy core hovered in the air, its surface covered with Vorlok sigils. "By the stars," Helena whispered, stepping forward. "They've found a way to harness the energy of the ancient entity." Commander Vrak's eyes narrowed. "That is no mere weapon. That is a conduit, a bridge between realities. The Vorlok, they intend to transcend." The realization hit them like a blow. The Vorlok weren't just after power or control. They were trying to tap into forces beyond this universe, to access something otherworldly. And they were about to succeed. Before they could react, the room was flooded with a brilliant, blinding light. The energy core flared to life, and the ground shook with the force of a cosmic storm. From the walls, the Vorlok emerged, tall, shadowed figures whose skin was a translucent, shifting membrane. Their hive minds were linked, and their collective intelligence was vast beyond comprehension. The humans and Hadrak instinctively raised their weapons, but Helena could already feel the shift in the air. The Vorlok had come prepared, not with brute force, but with something far worse: knowledge. "We warned you," one of the Vorlok spoke, its voice a chorus of countless minds, each tone layered over the last. "The power you possess is not meant for you. It belongs to the great ones, to those who transcend the mortal coil." Helena's heart pounded. "If you think we're just going to let you take this power, you're gravely mistaken." "Your defiance is irrelevant," the Vorlok leader intoned. "You are but insects before the will of the great ones." The room crackled with energy as the Vorlok leader gestured toward the energy core. The power that emanated from it grew exponentially, a vast wave of force that seemed to warp reality itself. The humans and Hadrak were thrown back, their minds assaulted by visions, glimpses of distant stars, ancient gods, and an endless void beyond comprehension. They were being pulled into a strange and terrifying space between worlds. But Helena and Vrak, their wills unbroken, fought through the psychic onslaught. The Hadrak charged forward, their strength pushing against the supernatural tide. Helena reached out, grabbing a plasma charge from her belt and hurling it into the heart of the core. The explosion was deafening. The blast tore through the chamber, collapsing the walls and disrupting the energy core. The Vorlok screeched in unison, their collective mind writhing in fury. But it was too late. The core shattered, and reality itself seemed to warp and fracture. A rift opened in the fabric of space-time, tearing a hole in the universe. The very laws of physics bent and twisted, and the ground beneath them began to crack open. Helena and Vrak found themselves in freefall, spiraling toward the rift. The Vorlok were screaming, but their voices were drowned out by the roar of the rift. "Hold on!" Helena shouted, reaching out to grab Vrak's arm as they plummeted into the unknown. And then everything went dark. To be continued. The universe of the Deathworlders is vast, and the threat of the Vorlok is only the beginning. As humans and Hadrak venture deeper into the heart of the unknown, they will face challenges far beyond their understanding. The rift has opened, a doorway to other worlds, other dimensions, and perhaps even the end of everything they know. Where will the rift take them? What lies beyond the veil of reality? The answers will soon reveal themselves, but one thing is certain: the true battle for survival has only just begun.